profiler, it'll also give you the first, it'll highlight the first 1,000 most frequent words and the second 1,000 most frequent words. So depending on your level, you might, yeah. So it's, I mean, and the website's not really great, but what it can do is very cool. Okay, so that's one way to kind of prioritize what you want to teach. Also using lexical tutor, you can anticipate collocations and lexical phrases, so not just words, but word strings and things that go together. So on the n-gram function, I put in the same text as before, and I found a frequent forward string on the basis of. It's not that frequent, but in one text to have it come up twice means that might be a phrase that I want to teach to my class either before or after, because we know that just from being teachers that on the basis of comes up, and it's not very intuitive how you use that phrase. And the nice thing too is that you can highlight it and it gives you the examples from the text of how it's used. Okay, so now you've been using Corpus, you're using it to inform your teaching. How do you start kind of handing it over to students and getting them used to the idea? Well, this is what I think is the coolest. Instead of taking the 400 million words at the beginning and giving that to your students, why not give them a corpus of their own writing? So Learner Corpus is a collection of their essays. What I like about it is that it's very easy. The software, which is also in your handout, AntConc, is free, it's quick to download, and then you can do all sorts of crazy stuff. So what I did is I just for this example, I put in 15 examples from my class of essays. And then I could highlight, I could look for things like, I want to know how they're using this word. And I can get very quickly a concordance line of all the things that my students are doing right or doing wrong, or something I want to highlight in class. If you look on page 3, or the third page, this one, here's some concordance lines from my class. So what I did was I put in all these texts of their essays, I pressed the button for frequent phrases or frequent word strings, and I found as a result. I thought, oh great, 6 examples of as a result. My students are doing a great job, they're using great academic words, and I got really excited that it looked like more or less they were using it correctly. And then I took a closer look and I realized that actually all 6 examples were from the same essay. But that's valuable as well. So now I can say, I can pull the student aside and say, look, I know you're in love with as a result, but, take it easy. And the other cool thing is that, students can see, you could divide this up. The second example, according to, right? We did a lesson talking about how to reference other writers, and according to came up. That was one that the teacher said was also difficult for students to kind of get a hang of. So now I can highlight all their examples of using according to, and students can see how their colleagues are doing it versus how they're doing it. Are they doing it right? Are they doing it wrong? They get an idea of how their classmates are writing. The second step might be to make a course corpus, which would be a collection not of student writing, but of all the readings that they're going to read for the semester. The difficult thing about that is there's only so much that's available online. I got about 6 or 7 texts of the things that we were going to read about in class, and put that together as a corpus. But if you were all teaching from the same book, if you're all working at the same school, it might be worth it to take the time to scan in some of those readings. There's a lot of free online software that can convert your scans to text. And then all of a sudden now you've got a corpus of all the readings that you're going to be taught at your level or at your school. Okay, so I think, again, the scanning part is kind of difficult, but if you've got that resource and you've got the time, or get an intern to do it or something, then all of a sudden you've got it, and then you can show examples. So, poor interns. Okay, so where are we at here? Okay, so again, once you've got this course corpus, then you can compare that to their writing. So how did the readings that we used use according to, for example, versus how students are using it? Okay. You could also start using COCA concordance lines, but you're the one choosing what students get, so they're not going in and doing their own searches. For example, I've got some target language. I want to pick 10 great examples and give it to students, and then what can I do with that? Well, I could take some of the things that they're doing in class. So maybe I want to take examples of according to from COCA, from some sort of academic subsection of COCA, and then compare it with how their readings are using it or how students are using it. And they get to see, okay, well, how do I compare to these other authentic examples of the text? This might not seem that cool or that, I don't know, useful, but I think it would be great to have them confirming what's in the textbook or what's in the dictionary. So the textbook says this is a useful phrase. Well, how exactly is it used? So sort of like the not only but also. Can I find good examples from the concordance lines that my teacher gave me? So I give them 10 concordance lines, and they find the patterns that are the same as the ones that are from the textbook. You could also have them do something similar where you say, okay, I want you to give me some good sample sentences from the concordances that I give you that highlight how this new target vocabulary, this new target language is used.
How do you limit what they're seeing then?
So you're giving them the concordance lines. So I know that
you're printing it out.
Right, I'm printing it out and giving it to them. So then they only have to work with 10 or 15 lines versus 8,000. So just one quick example, my favorite word today, underline. So the Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English, which is corpus and form that's online, it says cause, principle, problem. Their example sentence says there's an underlying assumption that younger workers are easier to train. So the assumption, according to this dictionary, is a typical collocative. So then maybe we could say this, like, okay, here's what the dictionary says. I'm going to give you some examples, and I want you to find some examples. Okay, and going back to what you guys already seem to be able to see, I can't believe you could see that. A closer view, we notice that, in fact, of these 10 or 15 lines that I gave my students, causes is there, assumptions is there, assumption is there. But then it also gets them thinking, hey, wait a minute, I also noticed that factor came up more than one time. So maybe factor is an important collocative that students want to know more about. So that's a way to kind of control how they're exploring the corpus without having them overwhelmed with lots and lots of examples. Okay, so my favorite part, the part that we've been waiting for, like students do searches. How can you get them to do searches but not get them overwhelmed? Well, take a day and just pick one kind of search. So we're just going to look for the prepositions that go after the verbs that are in our textbook. So just teach them how to search for the prepositions that follow X, or the prepositions that follow whatever. Or maybe like we do with underline. Okay, we're going to look at these 10 words. We're going to go into the chart function, and we're just going to find out where these words are most common. Is this an academic word? Is this a fiction word? Is this a newspaper word? Okay. And then also, once students are getting a little bit more comfortable with it, I know there's some teachers over at Berkeley that are doing this, you can highlight student writing, and instead of just writing awkward, you could, which happens a lot, you can say, hey, why don't you try a search for this, and give them the search, and have them kind of correct their own writing. So an example from my class, a student wrote something about blah, 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 is based on the wrong beliefs about actions. And I thought, wrong beliefs, yeah, that just doesn't sound good, but I don't really know how to explain why it doesn't sound good. So I said something like, okay, go to COCA and just do a search for adjectives that go before beliefs. What are the most common ones that follow or come before beliefs? Any guesses?
Erroneous.
Erroneous, false. Yeah, I mean, if you were going to correct it on the paper, what would you tell the student?
False.
Okay, well, you're mistaken. No, false. Mistake is a little bit more common, 76 hits, versus false and, well, false belief and false beliefs.
49 and 44.
Yeah, exactly.
Irrational.
Yeah, irrational.
Kind of
firm,
connotation.
Yeah, so a Catholic belief is pretty high up there.
Catholic belief.
Yeah, so and again, you can click on all of these and find out a little bit more about how that's used. But wrong beliefs, one hit. So you can basically say, well, look, I guess it's possible, but it's 76 times more likely it's going to be